Good afternoon, Year 3. So we're going to carry on reading about Harry the Poisonous Centipede. We're going to read the next chapters. So far we've read chapters 1 to 5. So if you haven't yet read chapters 1 to 5, please go back onto This Way from Tuesday and Wednesday and have a look at those chapters. Okay, so we're going to have a look at chapter 6, and this again, I know I've said this both times already, but this is just for enjoyment. So you can just listen, enjoy the story, make sure you're in a quiet place so that you can listen to it carefully, but otherwise just sit down and enjoy. Okay, so chapter 6 is called The Lie. I'm just going to go back to the page before so that we can remember what happened right at the end. Okay, so Harry had fallen into the pool. He'd been trying to swim and he'd fallen in and then he'd got washed up on the side and had to turn himself back over. And he was wondering at the end of the chapter, should he tell his mother what had happened to him? And he decided probably better not, even though he hadn't done the one thing she'd told him never to do, go up the up pipe into the place of the humans. I wonder whether that gives us a clue about what might be coming up in the rest of the story. So chapter 6, The Lie. Huxortal, where have you been? I've been really worried about you. Oh, I've just been, hunting. Yes. Any luck? Now she mentioned it, Harry realised that he hadn't eaten since those 25 ants' eggs he'd had for breakfast and that he was absolutely starving. He shook his head. Belinda gave a centipedic smile, which she did by waving her front feelers in a particular way. I'm glad, because look what I've brought you, your favourite. And she stepped aside and showed him a large, crunchy, juicy treat, his favourite indeed. It was a locust, which is like a very big grasshopper. Mama, wow, thanks. Can I eat it now? Of course you can, best in my nest, she said proudly. He ate the locust greedily, head first, although the head was the best bit, and he usually saved it till last. By the time he'd crunched the last leg, he realised he wasn't feeling very happy. You can guess why, of course. He felt bad because he'd lied to his mother. But he didn't see how he could have told her he'd been so stupid and nearly got drowned. Still, it wasn't as if she'd absolutely forbidden him to play near the water. She'd only forbidden him to go up the up pipe to the place of the humans. And he hadn't done that. He wasn't going to do it either. Not him. No, never. He didn't want to mess with those awful humans. And he probably wouldn't have done if it hadn't been for Gundajol. Don't even try it. Let's call him George. Chapter 7, about George. George was Harry's best friend. They'd been best friends almost from the time they'd come out of their mother's baskets. George didn't live with his mother. He'd run off and left her, as most centis do, as soon as he could run, and he called Harry a sissy feelers for wanting to stick with his mother. George lived and hunted alone, and because he was still very young and couldn't always catch anything, he often felt hungry. Then he saw the sense of having a mother. He would come creeping along to Belinda's nest tunnel and lie there, waving his front feelers feebly, looking really pathetic, until she would say, Oh, all right then, George, you'd better come and have a bite of lizard with us. But stop teasing Harry for still living with his mamma. Belinda worried a lot about Harry being such good friends with George. Harry got himself into enough scrapes without George leading him into all sorts of adventures. You don't have to do everything Gundajal does, you know, she would often tell Harry. He's a very foolish and naughty centi. Don't worry, Mama, I can think for myself, Harry would say. But it's very difficult when your friend wants to do something that sounds exciting, to be a dry sandbed, which is like a wet blanket with us, and say you don't want to join in because your mama wouldn't like it. So when one day George suggested that it was time they climbed out onto the no-top world to do a bit of real hunting, Harry only hung back a little. He was really very keen himself to go out and see the surface world outside. Only we'll have to watch out for flying swoopers and belly wrigglers and furry biters and especially humans, he said. George looked taken aback, but only for a moment. Oh, I know about all those things, he said in a pooh-poohing way. They're so big, I don't know how you can help smelling them coming or feeling the vibrations. And we won't go far from a hole. Well, come on then. Are you a scaredy ant or what? Chapter 8. Harry said no more and followed him along a tunnel that led to the no-top world. It was night. The two young centaurs poked their feelers out side by side and felt around and sniffed the outside air. It smelt wildly exciting. They couldn't see much with their weak little eye clusters, but their feelers told them there were lots of interesting things about. I smell food, whispered George. Me too. What is it? Harry whispered back. George crawled a little further out of the hole and waved his feelers for some more. It's something lovely and meaty anyway. Let's follow its smell and find out what it is. They crawled swiftly out and ran across the ground. It was great to be outdoors. Harry wondered why his mother had never brought him before. He could feel the fresh air along his segments and knew by instinct that he mustn't stay out long, that air could make him dry out. Meanwhile, this was the best fun he'd ever had. George stopped so suddenly that Harry ran over the top of him. Smell that! George crackled quietly. The most wonderful, warm, juicy, meaty smell came to Harry's feelers. It was very close. What is it? A mouse? Oh, no, I don't know what it is. It's over there. Let's go and get it. It might be too big. It's not. Can't you feel the vibrations from its feet? It's not much bigger than us. Come on, let's go for it. Get your poison pincers ready. George started to run, and Harry, who was still on his back, fell off. He righted himself and ran after George. He didn't want to be left behind. They turned a corner beside a large stone, and suddenly they saw it. In fact, they practically ran right into it. It was the fearsomest looking creature they had ever seen. It was a thing called a mole cricket, like an enormous furry cockroach armed with a pair of huge front paws like a bear's. George reared up in terror, and his top half did a swift U-turn in the air. Let's get out of here, he crackled shrilly and turned to flee. As George spun around, the thing turned as well and came lumbering after him. George was well on his way, but Harry wasn't. He was so frightened he just stood there. And the thing came running towards him, looking like a charging rhinoceros would to us. At the last second, Harry tried to dodge out of its path, but the thing turned its great ugly head and its terrible claw paws made a swipe at Harry. Harry instinctively whisked his tail and gave the thing a clout. Well, that made it jump, just long enough for Harry to stick his head under it and get in a good poisonous bite onto its belly. It went stiff. Its claw paws drooped to the ground. In another second, its thick-jointed legs had collapsed under it, and it fell with a thud, right on top of Harry. Okay, so we're going to finish there for today. I'm going to read some more of the story for you tomorrow. So I hope that you've enjoyed those questions. I hope that you've enjoyed those 3 chapters, and we'll read some more tomorrow. I wonder what's going to happen to George. Sorry to Harry and George.